Hello. Doing this again. I'm back. My very popular demand. Making another video about Cradle. This time with Pokemon music in the background. I finished books 4 through 6, known by Wight as Path of Gold for reasons that will become obvious. I got them all right here, baby. That's got all 3 of them right in front of me for referencing as I go. And reference as I go I will, because unlike last time where I had a pretty detailed set of notes that I was going through the entire time, I don't have that. Because I was thinking, I was like dreading doing that, like sitting down and writing what I wanted to think. So we're just gonna wing it. We're gonna wing it, and we're gonna go for it, and you're gonna like it, and you're gonna deal with that. Yeah, I might pause a few times to get my thoughts together. Like now, for example. Hey, brief interruption. This is from Gabe in the Future. You can tell it's the future because I have an outfit change and I have a hoodie on now, so it's me in the future. I received a lot of complaints in the last video that I spent too much time staring directly into the souls of the viewer. I like to listen to complaints. I like to listen to criticism and advice when it's given to me. So, but rest assured though, I will not stop staring directly into your soul. That would be terrible. I have to do that to live. So I won't be stopping that. But what I will be doing is I'll be providing you something else to look at. So you'll see throughout the video on, whichever side it's going to end up being on, just other, videos and stuff for you to look at. It's something distracting. Still pay attention to what I'm saying, but it's other, eye candy for you to look at. Ooh, fancy. So it'll hopefully keep you engaged with this very long Cradle video. Anyway, back to you, me in the past. And then we just come back. We come back like nothing happened. Anyway. So, I'm getting right back into it. This is my honest, real, on-God thoughts about Cradle's book 4 through 6. Starting with book 4, Skysworn. As I did last time, I'll give a very brief plot synopsis of each of them, and then we'll go into it. So, in Skysworn, at the end of the previous book, Black Flame, Lyndon had essentially... Fuck, what am I fucking doing? Okay, yeah, okay. So at the end of Black Flame, Lyndon did not end up having his fight with Jylong. So the beginning of this book is Lyndon got taken into jail for practicing the path of Black Flame at the end of Black Flame because it's illegal, because it's evil. So Lyndon gets taken into this prison by the Skysworn, who are basically just like fantasy cops, and it's hard to give a plot synopsis for Skysworn, okay? Because Skysworn is such a transitionary book, okay? Skysworn is like William Whitium had a certain number of things he needed to make happen at this point in the series, and he put them all in Skysworn. And so my grand review of Skysworn, which I haven't been shy about, is that I dislike it, primarily because it feels like a means to an end. And we'll explain that as we go. So, I'm actually brain on track. So in Skysworn, Lyndon needs to train with his friends from within prison to be able to hopefully survive against Jylong, his rival who is infinitely stronger than him at this point. And after that, he doesn't know what he's going to do. But we find out what happens. So, in Skysworn, God, so many necessary story beats have to happen. I'll start off with some pros and cons. The highlight of Skysworn, for me, is the fight against Jylong. Because this is something that was built up for all of Black Flame and for like part of Soulsmith. This is like the last 2 books they've been building this up, and it pays off pretty well. It's a good fight, and Lyndon like he throws the whole kitchen sink at the man. He does everything he can to his advantage. He tosses a bunch of like weapon constructs at him, and he just like tries to defeat him in one blow, because effectively, like, he will not win a battle of endurance against Jailong. Jailong is so much stronger than him. He has to take him out in one blow or else he's done. And he fails. He does pretty cool for a little bit. He does some cool stuff. Jailong is mildly nervous, but Lyndon just gets the upper hand on. Lyndon does not get the upper hand on him. Jailong decides to show him some mercy and only cuts off one of his arms. It doesn't kill him, which is super cool and awesome. And this is good as time as any to talk about this, and it just becomes more of a bigger deal in later books, but I really like Lyndon losing his arm as like a story beat. I think that's really cool. I think character design wise, it's really cool. I think it would be really annoying if this fight that was built up for 2 books ends without some sort of impact, right? And obviously it can't end with Lyndon dying. And it would feel honestly a little unrealistic if it ended with Lyndon winning, because so much time has been devoted to the fact that Lyndon is just far behind Jailong. He can't catch up to him in the several months that he has. So it's like Lyndon losing his arm is a way to have the battle feel like it made an impact, right? Without having Lyndon die. And so I really like that. I think that was clever. My problem with Skysworn is it's all downhill after that fight. Because after that fight, right? Up until that fight, the book is focused, for the most part. It's fairly focused. But then after that, it loses all focus of what it wants to be. And it's upsetting to me. Now, we're going to get to the good stuff in the later books, because books 5 and 6 are incredible. And Skysworn, I look at as a necessary evil to get to books 5 and 6. Not in, like, on the reader's end, but on the writer's end. Like, so much happens that is foundational in Skysworn. Lyndon loses his arm. That's foundational. Jai Dai Shao, the leader of the Jai clan, steals a powerful artifact, which pisses off a god, and the god ends up going on a murderous rampage, which is entirely foundational to what happens in later books. That is important, and that happens. Lyndon, having nowhere else to really go after this murderous god rampage, has to join the Sky Police, because he's no other way to help out. And so he joins the Sky Police, the Skysworn. That is incredibly foundational to later books. So much of what happens here. Yaren, we get more info on her and her blood shadow, which is this like parasite from the blood god that lives inside of her. And because the blood god goes on a rampage, it like awakens, and we get info on that. We meet Mercy, who is an important character in later books, but for now is just Girl on Broom, and that's about it for her. And so much of this is like, he tried to cram so much into this book that is just foundational. It feels like you're reading like 7 first chapters, and nothing after the Jai Long fight, nothing of impact happens. I mean, impactful stuff happens, but it doesn't feel narratively impactful, if that makes sense. Like, like, a god goes on a rampage and kills thousands. That's impactful. But it doesn't feel impactful because nothing much happens to our characters, if that makes sense. Nothing feels like a climax. That's the word I was looking for. Nothing in this book feels like a climax. Other than Jailong fight, and that's the beginning of the book. So, here's what I would have done. Personally, here's what I would have done. I would have made Black Flame longer. Because in my opinion, Black Flame's climax was also a bit lacking. I know Black Flame was long already, but if you put the Jailong fight at the end of Black Flame, you know, and then we get the awakening of the Dread God at the end of that, that'd be fucking awesome. And then Skysworn just needs to delve. I think the Dread God invasion should have lasted longer, because here's the structure of the whole Blood God awakening, the Blood God awakens and sends his emissaries ahead of him. Lyndon and the others have to fight off these blood sages, and that's violent. And then they end up like they end up escaping and outrunning their advance. And then they're like, well, they end up joining the Sky Sworn so they can fight back. And then they end up, through a complicated set of things I won't explain, they end up like in a dangerous fight in a shack against these blood creatures. And then they barely win that fight, hold themselves underground for a few weeks, and that's it. And then like you don't see most of what happens. And I think Skysworn would have been a lot better if we just kind of expanded into that and didn't have to have the Jylong fight in this book. I think that would have been better. Now, I'm not saying I ain't a writer, all right? I ain't a writer. But I would have preferred that. So, anyway. Enough narrative googly moogly. Other shit I wanted to touch on in Skysworn. Oh, by the way, I'm going to try to make this video shorter than the last one, because that's an hour long. So I'm kind of trying to limit myself to like 15 minutes per book-ish. We'll see how that goes. Something I wanted to touch on in this book. I'm curious what the fuck Aethon's deal is. Because continuously what has happened with Aethon is he is using these, like, non-traditional weapons to fight, like he's using scissors and like a broom, and like at first I thought that was him being cocky and trying to hide his true strength, which he definitely is trying to hide his true strength, but I'm curious if he has some sort of like an oath he took to not use like a sword or something way easier, and like that in exchange he got some power. So I'm curious about that, and I'm curious what all his like because every Aethon fight has happened off screen. Nearly every fight. He's had like one fight against Zhao Xiao, but he was holding back. Every Aethon fight where he wasn't holding back happened off screen. And I know there's a reason for that. Will doesn't want us to know what his deal is yet. And that's okay. That's fine. But I want to fucking know. So there's that. Skysworn. What else happens in Skysworn? You get a little bit more Orthos action in this book. You get a little more Fisher Gesha, but not much. Most of the focus in Skysworn is on Yeren, I'd say, because you get a lot more on her Blood Shadow and information on how that happened. And there's some stuff for the serial B plot as well. I think the concept of the Blood Shadow is really cool, and I think it's interesting in later books so they explore how you can like harness it differently. And how Yeren does it. There's only one particular way of doing it. I think that's really cool. What else is fucking cool in this book? Okay, I unpaused. Had to gather my thoughts. Yeah, I think Skysworn is not a bad book. I want to emphasize that because I feel like I've been ragging on it. It's still good. It was still like an enjoyable read. It's just like, in comparison to the rest of Will Wight's books, it just feels so held together by Spit and Thistle. But it's got, like, all the action scenes are great. Even though the Jylong is, like, the peak, all the action scenes are still really good. They're really well choreographed. They're really well done. As a whole, the pacing, even though the pacing isn't as good, the world building is still done pretty well. Everything is introduced in a way that is gradual, but still keeps you interested. Like the Akura family that become more important in later books. You get like the vibe of how strong they are for having a monarch in their family, and like what we get to learn more about, like what a monarch is and how they're just gods on earth, and that's interesting. I remember what I was going to say now. Will continues the tradition of taking the story in a very unexpected direction at every turn. Like there's a point where Lyndon needs to, in order to have the honor of joining the Skysworn, he has to beat an obstacle course, essentially. But because he is like bound to Orthos as his sacred beast, Orthos can go too. And so Orthos just grabs him in his mouth and just runs through the whole thing, and Lyndon just gets battered by everything and just running through walls and shit, and Orthos does not care. And then Orthos just spits him out and says he needs a shell, which is great. So, still, good book. I'm a fan. Just not a fan is what comes next, which I'm going to talk about now. By the way, Skysworn doesn't have any bloopers, which is so unfortunate. Bummer. Shit book. Anyway, next book. Ghostwater. Often referred to as Goatwater, because it's the goat. Also, I told you guys about this already, but for anyone who is uninitiated, I accidentally got a signed copy because I wasn't able to find this on Amazon, so I got it used off eBay, and I just accidentally got a signed by author copy, which I'm glad I got signed by author for this one because it's a damn good book. Ghostwater is the best book so far in the series. I personally think I prefer Book 6, that we'll talk about soon. It's my personal preference, but I think Ghostwater is probably, like, objectively the best. It is just so... It's such a tight adventure. Like, everything... It's pacing is immaculate in Ghostwater. Pacing... Will Wight does it good. He does it best here. Everything is one thing after the other. It's great. So, okay. Premise of Ghostwater. Ghostwater is interesting. It's very different from the previous books in the series, where every other book has kind of lifted off naturally from the book before it. Ghostwater kind of... it's very self-contained, in a way, because it kind of just picks off with Lyndon being given a mission. And they're just like, yep, here's the Sky Swarm, the Sky Police that he joined so he could help, because it was the only way he would be able to fight the Blood God. They were like, yep, we have a mission that we need you to go on, or we're going to kill you. And so he goes on a mission to essentially this demi-plane that was created by a monarch called Ghostwater, because it holds boundless riches inside, and it's about to collapse because the Dread God rose. The Blood God. And so he's sent with some Sky Police to go inside and, get all the riches that are in there. Shit goes down, though. The Sky Police that accompanied him immediately got murked and died by a shadow guy who just cut her in half with shadows. Akura Harmony, we'll talk about him later. And Lyndon is just on his own in Ghostwater, which is a very dangerous place to be. Not only because everything in there is dangerous, there's giant fish that want to eat him, but also because everyone else, there's other people in Ghostwater too that also want the riches, and they want Lyndon to die, so he can't have any of them. Ghostwater is like the book equivalent of a bottle episode, and I fucking love bottle episodes, man. It's so good. It's just... Essentially, I would estimate, I don't know for sure, I would estimate half of Ghostwater is spent in one hallway. In the best way possible. Because Lyndon, essentially what happens after Lyndon's co-worker dies, and he's on his own, this dragon lady becomes convinced that Lyndon is hiding something valuable. And that he's, like, hiding something from her. And so she, like, chases him down, tries to kill him, and then he ends up locking himself inside this, like, abandoned basement. And it has, like, magical wards on it, so this dragon lady can't blast through the wall. So Lyndon's safe in there, but he's, like, he doesn't have food. So if he leaves, he'll die. And so it's just, like, the whole... Half the book is Lyndon figuring out how the hell am I going to get the hell out of this basement with a dragon lady standing right there waiting for me to leave the basement to kill me immediately. And it's him just having to emergency train himself to be able to kill this lady. And I know a lot of people's pet peeves with Cradle as a series is that Lyndon is so weak, which, fair enough. I understand. For the first few books, Lyndon can't get out of a situation on his own. He can sometimes solve problems, but it's usually by accident, and it's just or luck or like cheating. Lyndon doesn't have any fair fights that he wins in the first few books. Ghostwater is where that changes. The book starts with Lyndon like a little mini vignette where Lyndon finds some like genocidal tyrant who's killing this town, and Lyndon just fucking murks him by accident. Lyndon doesn't even try to kill him. He has like an "I thought you were stronger" moment, and he just does it. And it's like Lyndon is strong now. They're showing by Lyndon is powerful, and throughout the course of this book, he becomes even more formidable. And this is when that happens. So what do I want to talk about? I guess the most important thing that I should talk about with Ghostwater is a brand new character that was introduced in this book, whose name is Dross, which is a word that it's a real word in the English language that humans use that I didn't know about until reading this book. It means trash, or garbage, or refuse. British words like that. Essentially, Lyndon in this hallway that he's in for the majority of the book, it is the basement of an abandoned laboratory, right? Because most of Ghostwater is a research facility, right? It was designed by this monarch, this god on Earth, to research the creation of a rote construct that could do his work for him. Not his like manual labor, but could do thinking for him. Because he was like, I am so powerful, but I still have to think. I still have to make all my decisions and plan things out and have feelings. And if I have a construct that does all that for me, life would be easier. So he creates this demi-plane entirely dedicated to creating this construct that can do thinking for him. And so he never succeeded, but all of the remnants of Ghostwater, now abandoned, have things that were intended to do that. So there are these constructs in this basement that were used to originally create these things that have now been left there for thousands of years. And one of these constructs was left soaking in a pool of this elixir that is essentially like an energy drink that like wakes you up and gives you like gives you energy and life. And it was soaked in this like magic elixir for so long that it gained sentience, and that's Dross. Dross is a living robot. He was essentially a hard drive that soaked in people juice for so long that he became sentient. Dross is like Jarvis. He's like Iron Man's Jarvis. He's just a quirky robot that hangs around with Lyndon now. And that's great. I like him as an addition to the series. I like him most in Ghostwater. He's not the focus in Underlord, so he's not as interesting. But I think it's like he's a good addition to the team, I think. I enjoy him. There's more cool stuff with Dross I'm going to talk about later in the climax, because I want to save that for last, because that's my favorite thing ever. So yeah, really like Dross. Think he's really interesting. My other thing that I really like about Ghostwater is we get so much Orthos, so much Grandpa Turtle in this book, because Lyndon is sealed in this demi-plane with himself, his Sky Cop co-worker, who he didn't really like very much, and Orthos, and Little Blue, who's like a baby. Little Blue is a baby fairy, basically, who just Lyndon carries around. So Little Blue isn't really a person at this point. And the Sky Cop dies immediately. She's killed immediately. So it's just Lyndon and Orthos. And Orthos got some focus in Book 3. That's where he was introduced. He was a little bit ignored in Book 4. Not ignored, but he was not in the focus. But in this book, he gets so much attention because it's just him and Lyndon together. And he is like effectively the deuteragonist, although Yaren has a B plot. You see a lot more of Orthos as a motivational figure in this book, and less of just like a comic relief character. And you see more of him actually being a mentor to Lyndon. And this shows up the most in one of my favorite scenes. Not my favorite scene, but probably my second favorite scene in this book is Lyndon has trained as much as he can in this hallway, but they are out of food. They managed to dash out and grab food once, and they nearly died. And they're out of food again. And they're like, we need to leave to grab food, or else we will not be able to recover from our wounds, and we will die. So Lyndon he decides to leave. And he has to face the Dragon Lady, and it's a very cool fight scene. It's a fucking sick fight, and Lyndon, no cheating, no fucking luck, maybe a little luck, not a lot of luck. Lyndon just wins, and he beats her, and he, you know, kills her instead of her killing him. And he goes in, and he, like, talks to Orthos, and Orthos is, like, proud of him, and as such, like, says, hold on, I want to find exactly what Orthos says, because I thought it was nice. Yeah, okay. So, when Lyndon has defeated her, you know, and he, like, wanders back into the basement that they were in, and he collapses, and Dross is like, the robot is like, oh, you're alive, who saved your life? Because Dross did not think Lyndon was winning this fight, and Lyndon says no one did, and he's just like, fucking, I'm about to collapse, and Orthos just, like, laughs really loudly and proudfully, and he's like, by the time we get out of here, the Skies won't be asking your permission to speak. And he's just like, he's so fucking happy, and his pride made me proudful of my boy Lyndon, who's fought so hard to get here. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment. Really, it's just a feel-good moment. You love to see it. And, yeah, and I think Orthos, he's just so much fun in this book. It's really just a merry time. I'm gonna talk about the climax in a second, but first I should talk about the B-plot. Yeren. That's enough about the B-plot. Yeren's trying to find Lyndon, and she can't. I mean, the B-plot gives you a lot of information about Mercy. Mercy is the daughter of the Akura clan, who are this incredibly wealthy and powerful family that owns half the continent. And Mercy is, like, suspiciously very weak, and nobody quite knows why, or at least Yeren doesn't know why. Because she should be stronger than that for being the daughter of essentially a god. And you learn a bit more about Mercy in this book. Yeren gets a bit stronger in this book and has a little bit of development. It's kind of interesting. Yeren is pushed to the sidelines in this book, which I think is just fine. She had a lot of focus in Skysworn. I love Yeren, but she can take a little seat. She could take a little seat in exchange for Lyndon and Orthos. Yeah, we get some really interesting side characters in this book. We get Ziel, who I want to know more about. Ziel is this guy who Lyndon finds after he gets out of the basement. He ends up in a library, and Ziel is this guy who has a hammer that he makes big, and he makes the hammer really big, and he crushes things with his hammer. I don't know how else to explain him. He's really cool. He's nice. He helps Lyndon out a bit, and then he dips. He's just chill. He's a chill, nice guy. Looking forward to learning more about Ziel. Cool. Interesting guy. Yeah. Dross gets to see what sadness is. He learns about that. I think, yeah, I think over the course of the series, Will Wight improves a lot at making characters seem interesting immediately. Because that's something that was really poor in Unsold. Most characters were not interesting except for Lyndon in Unsold. And the other characters that did manage to be interesting, he had to give a lot of time and development to make that the case. And I think there's a special skill that comes in introducing a character and immediately make them interesting. Immediately make them, like, you want to learn more about them. That is how Ziel is. And that's something that, I don't know, Will Wight gets better at it. And there's several NPCs in this book that are like that. Ziel is like that. The Akuras are like that for me in this book, though not to as great of an extent. I still didn't care too much about Mercy at the end of this book. Underlord makes you interested in Mercy. But, yeah. Good stuff. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the climax. The climax in this book is fucking amazing. Effectively, this guy who made these shadow blades and killed Lyndon's cop co-worker earlier in the book sees Lyndon and just steals his friend Dross, because, you know, fuck you, and then locks Lyndon in with no way to escape this dimension as it's collapsing. And so Lyndon has to immediately get strong enough to fight this guy. So he gets a little power up from his buddy Orthos, but then he's still not strong enough. So he rushes after Shadow Guy, and he manages to get Dross back from his friend. from his enemy. And he does something really interesting where he effectively, with Dross, completes the Monarch's mission, where the Monarch wanted to create this construct that could do his thinking for him and plan ahead for stuff. And Lyndon makes that happen by bathing Dross in all these like chemicals and stuff, and just takes like an unorthodox way to like the final puzzle. I can't really explain it here, but effectively, Lyndon turns Dross into a mental construct inside of him that is able to help him think and plan ahead. And I'm just gonna gush for a bit because it's so fucking cool. Effectively, if you know me, you know I hate the serial plot, the B plot, in all these books. Hate it. Do not give a shit. Plenty of talking about that in the first video if you want to know all about why I hate it. But this climax made me forgive the B plot for how cool this fucking moment was. Essentially, in the B plot, all the characters are gods. And that's important because that's why I fucking hate it. Because they're gods and they can do basically anything, and so that's uninteresting to me. Now, their problems are bigger, but like I just can't care. The scale is too big. But something about these gods is they all have something called a presence, which is like effectively a thing inside their mind that is able to do rapid calculations and seek information for them. And it has this particular writing style that they use when talking about the presence, where it's like seeking information. And it's got a special font they use. And Lyndon, after powering up Dross and absorbing him into his body and being able to use him as like this to plan ahead, it uses that same syntax as it uses for like the gods in the B plots. And so that shows that like this is really the completion of the Monarch's work, because it is that's what he was going to do, and that would have like pushed him into godhood, but he didn't complete it, so Lyndon has it. So Lyndon is one step closer to becoming an actual god, where he was so weak so little time ago. It's just so fucking cool. And Lyndon, with the help of Dross, is able to come up with a complex battle plan in a half a second that he can then use to fight this guy who is stronger than him. So this guy is so much stronger than him, but because Lyndon is able to, with the help of Dross, plan out every move, he is able to take him down. And it is so smooth, and it is so satisfying, and they don't drag it out. It is just quick and badass and awesome. And I fucking love it. It's the greatest scene in the whole series. Don't know, something may top it at some point, but that it is bar none for me. It's incredible. Fantastic stuff from William. And yeah, and at the end of the book, book 5, Lyndon and Yaren have a slow burn going on throughout these books, and it's such a slow burn. They hug in this book for the first time, and I nearly cried because they finally hugged. We're starving out here, all right? We're starving out here for some these two lovebirds to hang out and be happy together and have a normal life. But today they hugged. This book they hugged, and that made me so happy. This is a side note. One of my D&D players, we were talking about Cradle, and one of my D&D players was like, "Oh, if it's like this genre, he probably just has like a harem of women that follow him around or something, right?" Like disparaging about the genre, which I don't read stuff in this genre very often, so I can't say much about that. But this, at the very least, that is not true for this, because Lyndon has one woman, and they just now hugged in book 5. So, at the very least, they are not. He is not a ladies' man. But it's such a sweet. It's so satisfying, and it's awesome. And it's really satisfying because this guy who tried to leave Lyndon to die in this world, he leaves to die. Lyndon, like, kind of second guessing. He's like, "Oh, should I go in to save him?" But it's like, no, he was going to fucking leave you to suffer. So he left him to suffer, and it was awesome and cathartic and awesome. This would have consequences later on, perhaps in book 6, Underlord. But finishing up about Ghostwater. Ghostwater is so, it's a tight story. It is so complete and quick. It's fucking good. It's good stuff. Love Dross. Hold on, let me see if I have anything else I want to say about it before I move on. Okay, I remembered one final thing I wanted to say about Ghostwater briefly, because I know I already overdid my rule and I'm past the 15-minute mark. Something that I wanted, as I finished the third book, Black Flame, from Future Books, is I wanted to see more of this dichotomy, because Lyndon is a living dichotomy. He has two cores. He has a pure core, and he has a Black Flame core. Pure Madra is rare, and it's pure. And Black Flame Madra is evil, and used to be like a conqueror's Madra. Like it's not something that someone as nice as Lyndon would use, and your Madra impacts your soul and your personality when you draw on it to a degree. And so I wanted to see that dichotomy with Lyndon, and I didn't want them to just brush that past and not interact with it at all. But they do in Ghostwater. They have several moments where Black Flame helps and hurts Lyndon. Like there's moments where Black Flame makes him braver and able to overcome things, but it also makes him short-sighted and arrogant, because it's the flame of a dragon. So he has a dragon's arrogance when he's using it, or a tinge of it at least. And that is like a downside for him at some point, and like it bites him in the ass. And he learns throughout this book to use his pure core, like as well as Black Flame. And so there's a real dichotomy going on where there's advantages and disadvantages to both. And like Lyndon has a dichotomy as well, because he tries to be a good person and tries to be nice, but he also has to do shitty things just to survive. Anyway, good book. Final book that we'll be talking about today, and my personal favorite so far, is Underlord. Underlord, book 6. Essentially, in Underlord, there is we learn about a tournament that occurs across the continent. I don't know what the continent is called, because there's several different empires, and I don't know. There's no map. I kind of wish there was a map, but I think part of the thing is they want like the world to be very mysterious, because it's mysterious to Lyndon, so he doesn't know about it, so you're not supposed to. Anyway, several countries come together and they have a tournament of their not their strongest, but kind of their strongest people at Underlord level, which Underlord is a level of strength that's above gold. If you remember the last video I talked about, it's like copper, iron, jade, gold, and then like above that there's other shit. This is the other shit, is Underlord. And if you're an Underlord of a young enough age, because it means you have like a lot of potential, you're able to compete in this tournament. And so this tournament is approaching, and the Empire is trying to train as many people as possible to Underlord level, because just competing in the tournament alone is an honor. But it also has the potential to win you a ton of like money and artifacts and valuables. Tournament is kind of a plot device. I'll be honest. It is a plot device for this book, but I don't mind, because I like this book. Where we're gonna go, essentially what happens is the Akura family, if you're already mentioning them, they are a family that is rich and powerful, and effectively owns the entire country that Lyndon has been in for 2 books now, the Black Flame Empire. And they order the Black Flame Empire along with their some of their other empires that they own, and they're like, they give them this garden. I think it was called the Nightwheel Garden. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember what it was called. And it's this. They open this portal to this dangerous garden. That's just like, hey, if you go in here, there's a lot of treasures in here that have a lot of aura that helps you become stronger. Fight over it, you know, for the both of you. We don't care who wins. We just want you guys to become as strong as possible, and we're kind of throwing you into the fire against each other. And so this book is about Lyndon and his friends trying to become stronger using this opportunity. It is a plot device. I will give you that. And so it's not as like tight as Ghostwater, right? But I like a lot of the character work that's done in Underlord. Underlord made me cry, and I'll tell you why. Our friend Lyndon is getting stronger and stronger, and our friend Orthos is a sacred beast. He's a turtle, so he doesn't use human levels to rate his advancement, but it's said that he is like vaguely like around true gold, which is right below Underlord. And in this book, that's where Lyndon is too. He is true gold, and he's like on the brink of Underlord as well. And Orthos is effectively like, in fact, has a moment where he meets Linden alone in the forest, and he's like, "You are going to outpace me." And he doesn't say this directly, but he's saying like, "You don't need me anymore." And then he's saying like, "I am going to grow stronger myself on my own, figure out what I am away from you, and so I have to leave." And this comes as a fucking gut punch, because we've been building a expansive cast of characters so far throughout the 6 books. Never has anyone left. They didn't leave, and I didn't think the turtle was gonna leave because I love him. He's an old, awesome turtle. But he straight up was like, "Yeah, I'm leaving." And Linden's like, "Don't do this." And Orthos like, "Sorry, man. I gotta go do other shit." And so they have a tearful goodbye, and Linden like cries, and Orthos says like, Linden like tries to stifle back his tears, and Orthos says, "A dragon does not fear, like, a dragon does not fear sound." Hold on. I'm gonna look up the exact quote. Okay, I'm back. I opened the page almost immediately because it's a little crinkly from my tears. But the Orthos is just, Linden is like trying to keep his emotions under control. He's trying not to start bawling, and then Orthos, who is this like spiny creature, right? He is like rough and mean and hard to love because he has black flame in him, and that makes him arrogant and just hard to be around. He has a tender moment where he rests his forehead against Linden's, and he says, "A dragon is not ashamed of tears." And that allows Linden to just bawl and just like let loose. And it's so, he just throws his arms around his neck and he starts crying. And then it's such a sweet moment, and I love it. And then Orthos leaves. And this is a fantastic decision, okay? Because, as I mentioned, not that I don't like, or I love Orthos, especially after Ghost Warner. We love Orthos. But it's such a good decision, because, as I mentioned, we're getting a lot more characters over the course of this book. Our rotating ensemble of supporting characters includes Yeren, Fisher Gesha, Little Blue, Dross, Aethon, and Orthos, and Mercy. Almost forgot Mercy. And, you know, that's just a lot. That is a lot. And so there comes a time where you gotta say goodbye to somebody, and at least temporarily. And Orthos was so the right call, because not that I don't love Orthos again, but Orthos has kind of fulfilled his purpose in a narrative sense, where he has like helped Linden progress and become proud of himself and have some sort of like confidence in him. And now Linden has that, so there isn't so much of a need for Orthos to be around anymore. I think if Orthos stayed around as like a main primary member of the cast in Underlord and beyond, I think it would just be, he would be Flanderized almost, I feel like he would be relegated to the sidelines, and he wouldn't feel like a dragon anymore, and he would just make a lot of jokes about stuff that's going on, which Orthos is funny, and I love Orthos, but part of what makes Orthos so great is that he was always powerful and he could solve problems. Linden doesn't need anyone to solve his problems anymore. He just doesn't. He's strong enough on his own. So there is not much need for Orthos. And so, anyway, great decision to say goodbye to Orthos in particular, at least for now. And then we get an end credits scene. I'm jumping ahead, but there's an end credit scene at the end of the book where we learn that Linden's home is in trouble. And I couldn't quite tell from what, because I know Jai Long checked out Linden's home for some reason, so that might be part of it. But I also remember in Unsold they mentioned something about there was something mentioned about marching on Linden's home, like one of the other clans within his Sacred Valley. Nat. So that also might have been part of it. I couldn't quite tell. But essentially at the end of the book, Linden's sister is running from somebody, and it is Linden's sister is running from somebody, and Orthos jumps in out of fucking nowhere and saves her. And how the fuck did you get here, Orthos? I don't know. Really cool scene. Great end credits scene, effectively, of the book. Loved it. Loved it. Good shit. Yeah, anyway. Loved Orthos leaving. My favorite scene in this book because it made me so sad. but I loved it. Other things that happen in this book is Lyndon and Yaren's relationship. Not like they ain't official. It's a slow burn, but like it gets progressed in a large way. That's also my favorite scene in the book. Effectively, if you remember correctly, from what I said earlier, you should have been paying attention. I hope you were paying attention. The Black Flame of Heart is fighting against this other rival country that is under the Akura family for control of this garden that they can use to raise their warriors up and make them stronger. Because even though they're owned by the same family, they still are rivals, and they could still conquer each other, and the Akuras wouldn't care. So they are competing, and one of the competitors is this woman with the power to shorten your lifespan. She effectively cuts your the trunk of your lifeline, I think it's called. That's a concept that's introduced in this book. She essentially like reduces your lifespan if she hits you, which is scary and awesome. And Lyndon and Yaren barely make it out of a fight with this girl and another guy who's not nearly as interesting. He just kind of makes rocks. And they barely make it out of a fight against these two. And in the process, she gets a couple cuts at Yaren, and Yaren's lifespan is reduced to 2 months. 2 months. Do you know how I fucking felt when I read that shit? I was stressed. I was like, what are they gonna do? 2 months? And believe it or not, like, one of the scenes soon after they reveal that she has 2 months to live is them being like, welp, it's been 7 weeks and 6 days. Like, they have a time skip of almost 2 months. So they really effectively give you like 2 in-world days for Yaren to live, which is great pacing. And in the process of that, like, Yaren is like on like a hospital bed, like recovering, and Lyndon is like having a moment where he like wants to talk about what they're going to do if they survive this, because he's like tired of her being in trouble and like him being in trouble, and like he's scared, and he's thinking about, he wants her to have a normal life, and he's thinking about all this shit, and he realizes, he's like, I need to say something to her right now, and I don't know what, I need to say something. And he says, he essentially goes, you got this, and he literally gives her a thumbs up, and he says, you got this, and then he walks away, and then he says, he thinks that was the wrong thing to say, and so he walks back inside, and he has a do-over, and he says, I want to be with you. And they say it in a relationship way, but they say that like, I want to be present, I want to like travel with you, I want to live with you in whatever form that takes, and I believe that we're gonna get there, and we're gonna make it so you can live long enough for us to live together wherever we go. And it's fucking sweet, man, and it's really, it's dorky, and it's sweet, and it's awesome. And the best fucking part is that throughout this scene, Athon is trying to talk to them, and both of them keep telling him to leave, so they get their cute little moment. Like, Lyndon is like saying this thing, and then Athon pops his head into the tent. They're in a tent. It's a hospital tent. Pops his head into the tent, and Lyndon's like, fuck off. And he doesn't say that. It's a, no swearing. He says like, leave, and so Athon like walks away back out, and Lyndon keeps talking, and then he reaches like a stopping point. Athon pops his head back in, Lyndon says leave, and he pops his head back out, and then he reaches a stopping point, and then Athon pops his head back in, and Yaren says leave, and she starts talking. It's really cute and funny, and I like it a lot. I think it's like one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. It's just that shit hits me, man. I love a slow burn. All right, sue me. I love a friends to lovers. I love a good, like, they care. They realize slowly they care for each other and want to be there for each other. It makes me happy. It warms me up on the inside. So yeah, great shit. Thumbs up all around. But yeah, like they kind of progress in that way where they're still not like officially romantic or anything, but they've opened up about like that they care about each other a lot. And yeah, that's the slow burn shit that we're talking about. yeah, so the book... Oh my god. Okay, we're gonna have a brief intermission, because Natalie just texted me and was like, you got a hoodie? Show it to me. I'm gonna show you guys on video, because that made me think of it. Look, I got this hoodie for $5. It's got birds on it. Anyway, I have a one-track mind. Anyway, that's my hoodie. Okay, back to the book. So, yeah, Will Wight does this. Sometimes Will Wight has plot devices he needs, and he has a talent of making those plot devices interesting in world and kind of make sense in world. So effectively, this book, they're trying to become underlords, and becoming an underlord isn't the same as advancing was in prior levels. Like, to become a true gold, you just need to get enough Mandra and become skilled enough with Mandra, right? And absorb a remnant. That's not how it is for underlord. To become an underlord, you have to realize why you practice the sacred arts. And that's just prime character development right there. That is, in order to progress, they all have to realize their motivations. And that's like, it doesn't feel clunky. It feels good. And so that gives us a lot of character work in this book, and that's part of why I like it so much. And one of the characters that gets that work in this book is Mercy, member of the Akura family. We know very little about her until this point, but this book makes you like Mercy. She's great. She effectively is a savant and a genius, and she chooses to abandon her family because she realizes that everything she cares about is because of her mother. She's just got such bad mommy issues, she leaves, and her mom gets pissed and makes her weak. And so that's why she was so weak when she doesn't seem like she should be. She's effectively the daughter of a god, and she lives her whole life trying to impress that god. And she's just devastated by the fact that there is nothing else to her. And so her advancement to Underlord is pathetic. And all the advancements to Underlord are pathetic in this book, and I think that's interesting, and it sets up for future growth. But it's like, their realizations were all shameful realizations. And Akura's realization for Underlord was, I practice the sacred arts because my mom wants me to. And that's it. And so she has no real care for like herself and like why she does things. And I just think that's interesting, and that makes her interesting as a character. And we see a lot of her powers in this book. There's a scene where she does a backflip. We love backflips, don't we, folks? We love backflips. And I like all the Underlord revelations the same. Lyndon's revelation is like, I practice sacred arts so I won't be pathetic. Is like, I think literally the wording. It's like, so I won't be pathetic anymore. And that's just so funny. It's true. Like, that's why he does it. And you Will Wight, again, great at subverting expectations. Because you go into these books thinking, this book at least, think, oh, the realization's gonna be like, I practice sacred arts to protect my family. Because that's technically why Lyndon's doing it. That's why he left the valley in the first place. But that's not why he practices sacred arts. It's all, they have such interesting alternatives to what you would expect their reasoning would be. And that is awesome. And Yaren's reasoning is like, I've had people die around me, and that's scary, and it sucks, and I don't like it. So I practice sacred arts so people don't die, because people dying upsets me. And it's like, it comes out in like a rambling nonsense way, because that's how she feels about it. And it's just, I don't know. I think that's a damn good plot device. It's a plot device, but it's a tasty plot device. It's like, you know, like, how do I like make this a metaphor? You know, like when you eat food, and it's like you're eating it to eat because you're hungry, but you're also like, damn, this is some good food. And you can also eat because you're hungry and it won't be good food. But in this case, it's a damn good lasagna, alright? This is some good fucking lasagna. Sorry, I'm tired. I got 3 hours of sleep last night. I hope that's apparent right now. Yes. Anyway. Yeah. Fuck. Good plot device. Really enjoyed it. Near the end of the book, after barely making it out with their lives, I thought Yaren I was sure Yaren was going to die. I was sure, because she was like effectively like at the end of this book, she was at the end of her timer, and her life was just fading away, and effectively it was Lyndon, Yaren, and Mercy against 3 Underlords from the rival kingdom. And before starting the fight, none of them were Underlord. They all advanced to Underlord during the battle, which is badass. And it's like they are at a very clear disadvantage. But still, Lyndon and Mercy both managed to defeat their enemies, but Yaren had not, and Yaren was dying. And I was like, this is such... It would feel wrong for the book to end with everyone winning, right? So somebody has to lose to kind of like have some sort of drawback to it. There was Mercy's drawback, but I'm not going to talk about that. That's too much to talk about. I do really like the Mercy thing, but that's I think that'll be in books 4 more next book. I'll talk about it later. But Yaren doesn't die. They managed to save her life, and I was happy about that. But they do manage to they add suspense to the end of the book in a way that, like, this is the best cliffhanger any Cradle book has had so far. It's might be the only real cliffhanger we've been left with. Every other book left off somewhat conclusively. But this was like a cliffhanger, because effectively, if you remember me saying earlier that there might be consequences to Lyndon killing that shadow guy, yeah, that shadow guy is the nephew of a sage, and sages are 1 step below monarchs, so they're 1 step below gods. And she is like, she talks to Lyndon, she's like, yeah, I hate you so much for killing my nephew. I'm going to make you fight for me in the tournament instead of for your own country. So you have to fight the people from your own country in the tournament. And then she just teleports Lyndon away without another word. So Lyndon and Yaren, after having this emotional get together and Lyndon being like so happy that Yaren gets to live, and then being like, okay, now we just chill and live life together. Who cares? Who cares? He gets teleported away and he's forced to compete. And next book they have to fight against each other. And at the end of the book, there's like an age limit, like I mentioned earlier, like to who can compete in the tournament. And Aethon is like, yeah, like Aethon's like, guess who like the other competitor is? And it turns out he's like 34, which is like right below the age limit. Even though anyway, that was funny. I enjoyed it. Overall, Underlord was my favorite so far, even though I think Ghostwater is a tighter read and it's better written, better paced. I just like Underlord so much, because it's so fun and it's so feel good and so emotional, and we get some Yaren and Lyndon catharsis, and I really liked that. So some of the stuff I'm most curious about going forward, I want to learn more about Aethon's powers, about what the fuck he can do, and I think we will learn more in the tournament. I'm wondering how he's gonna keep, because he's clearly been holding back in front of other people all the time. I wonder how he's going to hold back in a tournament where monarchs are present and they can clearly tell he's holding back. That I'm curious about. I'm curious to see what the fuck is going on in Sacred Valley right now with Lyndon's sister and his family. What the fuck is going on there? I'm curious to see if, like, because I know it's Underlord and then Overlord and then Archlord, if the other advancements are similarly, like, plot devicey. And I kind of hope they are, because it was fun. And if they are, like, how that's going to go. How they're going to advance through that. I'm interested to see Lyndon and Mercy in like a solo plot. Like, we're getting character dynamics we haven't gotten a ton of now. We're getting like we're getting a book with exclusively Lyndon, Mercy, and Aethon, Yaren, which I think will be really interesting. What else am I excited for? I'm excited to have hopefully another book continuing the streak of practically no B-plot, because Skysworn had a lot of B-plot, and then books 5 and 6 had so little B-plot. Oof, so little serial plot. That feels good to me, man. That feels good to me. I love that. Yeah, that was just... It's really... I don't know why I thought about this, but when I was on the plane coming back here, there was a lady behind me who was talking to the lady behind her, and lady next to her, and they were talking about this second woman who her kid has autism, And then the first lady was like, you know, you can get rid of that. You just have to, like, feed him lots of fruit and make him exercise a lot. Which, I thought that was so, like, funny. Because, like, what do you think? What? What? Like, that's what you think gets rid of autism, is eating fruit and exercising a lot? And that's a true story. That's a true thing. That's a true person that was behind me on the goddamn airplane. And she also, like immediately, like, a flight attendant had to stop her from, like, taking off her shoes and socks and putting her bare feet, like, on the floor. Because apparently that's not allowed on a plane. And the flight attendant gave her, like, 2, like, trash bags to put her feet into. Anyway, this is a funny thing that happened to me. But anyway, I'm really curious to see, because Little Blue is getting, this baby fairy is getting more and more smart at being able to, like, actually communicate concepts. I'm excited to see how that continues, and if she gets real sentient personality, I'm excited to see more of that. But yeah, I think that's about it, I think. I hope you enjoyed the video. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's... Oh, I'm excited to see if the Seychelles come back. That's my last thing. Yeah. I'm excited to read the next book. Currently reading a book that I have on loan from Madeline, so I'm going to finish that, and then I will get to Uncrowned. And I'm excited. These books have gotten better and better and better. If I were to draw a graph, the quality of the books, it goes consistently up, and then it hits Skysworn, and then it just, like, goes up again, and it's good. It's good. It's good. Yeah, very excited for future books. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a lot more rambly than the last one because I didn't have notes, but I also feel like there's less for me to talk about with precision, because the last one I was talking about, well, that's writing style, when that is fairly the same in this book. So I'm just talking about the shit that went down, the shit that chat. All right, my favorite character in the whole book is
Jai Long in here. I need to put Jai Long in here.